Hey everybody, it's Justin, aka Demonic Sweaters, here with a live stream today. How's everybody doing? Oh wait, my mic level might be a bit hot. Tell me if I'm distorting or if anything sounds weird out there. I'm actually trying out this brand new headset mic. It's just kind of like wireless headset mic. I know I kind of look like I'm hosting an infomercial, but I bought this thing because actually for me and Ronan, probably this Friday, if weather stays good and if I'm recovered enough from my root canal that I'm having tomorrow, we're going to be kind of doing guerrilla performance here in New York. We're going to go out to Brooklyn Bridge Park and go out to one of the piers there and try to get some video footage of us playing a couple songs live in front of the East River with the city, the skyline of Manhattan behind us. I think it'll be really cool, and that'll be a lot of fun. So looking forward to trying that. And so I got this headset mic so I could sing and play the drums at the same time without having to set anything up. And this thing, it's pretty cheap. It was like, I think like $12 or something like that off of Amazon. Of course, it's made in China, but it doesn't sound half bad. And it's got like a wireless receiver that you plug into the, whatever you're using it on. And right now I just have it plugged into my interface and just go on here to OBS. And it seems to be working good. Excuse me. So the only disadvantage is you're going to hear every little sound that my mouth makes, or if I'm burping or anything like that, you're going to hear everything completely clear. So anyway, like I just did right there. Anyway, so what I wanted to do today was actually play an album of mine, which is called Turn of the Scroct. And it came out, when did it come out? I think 2018. Let me just double check it. A couple years ago. And I still really am pretty proud of this one. And actually, I was listening to it today. And I was like, man, I should do a little stream about this album just because, I think it's a pretty unique album. It's a little different than most of my other ones. And where's the release date on this thing? Oh, yeah, September 5th, 2018. So it's almost 2 years old. And I just, it's one of the more experimental albums I've done that also includes live drums. The early Demonic Sweater stuff was very experimental, but a lot of it was mostly electronic. Without like actual instruments on it. And that was mostly due to like just where I was living at the time and not having a place to record my drums. So I was churning out a lot of electronic only records in the beginning of the Demonic Sweaters, releases rather. Well, if you go back to the really early releases, like way back on Anthill Recordings, those have full instrumentation, but the period of stuff from like yes, this album is on Spotify. Harpreet Singh says, yeah, and the link is actually in the description of this video. I put it on there. But oh yeah, what I was saying was that what happened is after I moved to New York, I was living in this little tiny apartment, even tinier than this one that I'm in right now. And so a lot of the early Demonic Sweater stuff that I did at that time was just, synth-based and electronic-based. But then when I got this album, Turn of the Scroct, 2018, I rented this little drum room, different one than I have right at this moment, but pretty close to my apartment. And it was kind of this really soundproofed little tiny room where I had my drums. And I recorded a lot of drums for this album in that particular room. Not everything, but mostly everything on there. Well, I'll go over it all. So let me just go ahead. I'm going to play the first track on here. And this one is called Sunset Park. And then I'll come back with the details about what's going on in this track, why it's called that, and, details of the recording and all that stuff and how I did it. So here we go. This is Sunset Park, first track on Turn of the Scroct. I'll still be here in chat, too, if you guys want to ask questions about anything. because it just kind of bleeds right into the next track. So yeah, that one is called Sunset Park, and Harpreet. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Harpreet. Yeah, I would like to do a drum playthrough of that one, but and I actually thought about doing that, but like I said, something happened to the original file, like the original master recording I have of that. I still have it, but it's like missing some tracks or missing some stuff in it. I need to, really get in there and see if I can figure it out. I could probably fix it, and because that's the only way I'd be able to make a drumless version of it. But if I can do that, then yeah, I'll definitely try to do a drum playthrough on that one, because that one's a cool groove. It's I remember it was pretty it's a tricky beat because it's in 6/8, and I'm doing 16th notes on the hi-hat, but to do that type of to do it with both hands the way I was doing it, you kind of have to play your left hand on the snare. So it's really kind of tricky to do. It took me a little while to kind of get that groove down to where I thought that it felt smooth, but the end result I think came out pretty good. Basically that whole song came about from messing around. At the time I had one of those little Korg Voca keys or whatever they're called, like it's basically like a tiny little analog synthesizer, and I'd hooked that up to Ableton and started playing around with it. I think I had the MIDI control coming out of Ableton, so I was able to basically create MIDI loops and then put them through the Voca keys, and just kind of played around with that. And then I added some bass parts. There was basically everything in there is just synths and drums. There's no actual other instruments besides those two things. So there was the Voca keys. There was some Ableton instruments. I know the bass was one of the Ableton instruments, and then the kind of pad sounding synth patches are all coming from my Kawai K1. So it was like a little combination of hardware and software synths on that. And I did the whole thing in Ableton, like I said. And I actually think I programmed drums for it originally in Ableton, playing it on my pad controller. And I almost released it like that, because I actually liked the version with the programmed drums. I didn't think it sounded bad at all. It was just, I was like, well, I'll try it with the real drums and see if it sounds as good, and I ended up liking it more. So that's what happened. I think I still have the original track of the electronic drums as well, or I might even have a mix of that somewhere. Let's see. Got some questions here. James says, did you use a plugin for the keys, synths, or built-in Ableton? Wait, I think he just answered. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. But there's a delay between when I'm talking here before by the time you guys hear it. So yeah. But if you have any other questions about that, feel free to ask. So yeah, and then what I did, and I think that was right around the time when I first started renting out that drum room. And so I mic'd up my drums. There was I don't believe I had tom mics. I believe I only had a kick drum, snare drum, and 2 overheads on that particular recording. And that was using my Tama Imperial Star Bop kit, which I still have and use on everything, just about everything. And the cymbals, I really like some of the cymbal sounds I have on there. There's basically the ride cymbal is a Paiste 505 ride cymbal, 20-inch. And those are, if you don't know about the Paiste 505s, they're a really, really hidden gem for Paiste cymbals. They're vintage. They're no longer being made. But when they came out, they were not very expensive, and Paiste made a ton of these things, and they're still not very expensive. You can usually find the 505 line for pretty cheap. I think I paid like $110 for mine, and I actually have it right over here. I should show it to you guys. But the cool thing about this mic is you can still hear me when I'm away from my computer. So yeah, the 505 line, they're very similar to the Paiste 2002, except they're a little bit thinner. So this is it right here. And the hammering is very similar to the Paiste 2002s. And it's a thinner cymbal, so it gives it kind of a lower pitch and more of a dark wash. And I just really like this thing. It's a great sounding ride cymbal. It's one of the nicer sounding Peisty rides that I've ever had. Actually, it works for like a lot of stuff. It's got a good crash to it too. So it's just nice. It sounds really good. That's the only 505 that I have. I almost bought a pair of 505 hi-hats, but then I got those Meinl 15-inch ones instead. But maybe I'll still get the 505 hi-hats so I could have kind of a matching set. That would be cool. The crash that I'm using on there, I think the main crash is a PST5, a Peisty, and then I was also using a Meinl HCS Trash Crash, and then as well as a Meinl HCS Bell cymbal. So and the hi-hats are the New Vader 15-inch hi-hats on that particular recording. And I thought the hi-hats sounded really good on there. Like those New Vader hi-hats, depending on which mics I use, can sound really, really excellent on recording. It just really just depends on what kind of mics I have set up. They seem to sound the best with the ribbon mics, which is probably what I was using on that. And I just think they sound really nice. So yeah, so that's pretty much all with and Sunset Park. The reason why it's called Sunset Park is that's the neighborhood I was living in at the time in Brooklyn. And it just kind of seemed fitting for some reason at the time. Even though Sunset Park's it's not the greatest neighborhood in Brooklyn, but it's safe and it's not as expensive as a lot of other places in Brooklyn. So if you do want to move to New York, God knows why you'd want to do that now. But if you ever did want to move to New York, Brooklyn, Sunset Park is like definitely a place where you can find pretty affordable housing that's not like, a terrible neighborhood. So yeah, and it's got a really nice park there too called Sunset Park. So that's kind of like, what I wanted to name the song. And yeah, it just sort of seemed fitting. I don't really know why. But other than that, there's not a huge story behind that other than that and the name. So anyway, let's move to the next track. And the next one is, well, I'll just play it first and then I'll talk about it. But this one's called Mercury Werewolf. So here we go. into the next track. So, yes, that one is called Mercury Werewolf. And the reason why that one's called Mercury Werewolf really was just because that one synth sound in there I thought reminded me of a howl. It had this like, ow, like type sound to it, and it just kept making me think of werewolves. And it wasn't like a howl sample or anything like that. It just happened to sound like that. I actually think it was like I had this sample pack of like a bunch of different glitch sounds, and there's a lot of them through that song, different like fax machines and glitches and all kinds of stuff in there. And something about one of those samples that what I did to it in there, I'm not sure exactly what it was now, but it just ended up sounding like that, and I just thought it sounded like a werewolf howling, and so that kind of set the mood of the whole song. And I actually made a video for this one, and I think the video is pretty cool too. If you want to search it out later, you can find it on my channel somewhere. And I just use like footage from the howling and other like werewolf, maybe only that movie, but there's like the transformation scene from the howling in there and like some other stuff, and I thought it came out pretty cool. I'll probably put it on my Instagram too. And Heartbeat says this song is good for the people who are high. This will set the mood. Yeah, I mean there's definitely a vibe to it. Like I don't know, it's definitely got a vibe. But so the sounds that I'm using in that one. That main distorted synth sound you hear in the beginning and in the end where it fades out, that has that kind of filter on it, that sweeping filter, that is actually one of my plugins that I wrote a long time ago called the Mothman 1966 plugin. And you could download those at demonicsweaters.com if you want. I have a whole suite of Mothman synth plugins. But the thing is with those is they're all pretty old because I wrote them a really long time ago. And they're all 32-bit, and they're all Windows only, which kind of sucks, I know. But, well, you can use them in Linux. They'll work in Wine and Linux, and I've definitely done that before. And if you have 64-bit Windows, you can get them to work. Like I'm using them in Ableton with this thing. It's like a VST bridge. I can't remember the name of it, but you can actually. Basically, there's a couple of them out there, but you can bridge 32-bit plugins to work with 64-bit digital audio workstation hosts, and that's how I got that to work in there. But anyway, that distorted sounding synth sound is that plugin, Mothman 1966, and it's a really simple little synth plugin, but it's got like some gritty samples in there that I made at the time, and I still think it sounds pretty cool. And I also mapped it to a filter on my MIDI controller so I could sweep the filter with the knob on the MIDI controller, and that's how I got that sweeping type sound. And Benjamin Lee says, new subscriber, what are we talking about? Well, I'm talking about my album Turn of the Scroct, and I'm playing it. I'm kind of DJing it for you guys and talking about all the stuff behind the recording and how I produced it and what I did in there. So this one, Mercury Werewolf, was also produced in Ableton Live, and that one had, for the drums, I played the drums on my pad controller, like finger drumming, and those were the Ableton drum rack and the 707 samples. And then I also ran the 707. I really love the way the 707 sounds, but what I really like to do to it is run it through like the Ableton has this saturation plugin, this saturator. And so what I like to do is run it through there to give it like more grit and more like almost like distortion, but not too much, but just enough to make it sound like, I don't know, like more in your face, And so like I played out, what I did is I think I created that loop first of the looping filter synth, and then I played a couple of different beats on top of it and created all these different clips. What's cool about Ableton is you can create clips and then arrange it later. So you can just get, start working on ideas of like what you think sounds cool and kind of build up these different clips. And then it gives you a lot of freedom to kind of assemble that into some sort of song afterwards. The bass was Ableton, just Ableton instrument, synth bass, I forget which one, but it's the same bass sound I used in Sunset Park, actually. What else is in there? there's also one of the other main synth sounds is also another one of the Mothman synths, and it's the Mothman 2000 synth. And that's kind of that higher pitch. There's like this, let me just point it out to you real quick. I can play here. That. You hear that? There's like this, like in the background, and it's actually kind of a layered sound that comes from that synth, and it's actually the first patch on the synth. If you download it, there's a patch on there. I think it's called Smorf, and it has a few different oscillators, so it kind of like morphs over time, and it's got the oscilloscope, and you can see it, and it's pretty cool. But that one, I like that patch a lot. I use it a lot, and now let's see. James says, "Do you still remember these tracks if you had to play them, or would you have to relearn them?" Well, it depends on which parts. I mean, I'd probably have to relearn a lot of it. I mean, the drum parts, a lot of times I can remember. Synth parts, usually I will have to relearn. Guitar, if I'm doing guitar, a lot of times I can remember that too. But it depends on how I made the song as well. Like if I build it out of loops, like kind of like this song, this one would take me more time to figure out again, to play it again, because it was kind of one of those things where I'm just screwing around, like coming up with improv and stuff like that, and then I compiled it into a song afterwards. Other songs, especially on the more recent material and what I'm working on now, the more rock sounding stuff, more, traditional guitar, drums, bass, a lot of times I'll work those out beforehand before I even record, and so those I can usually remember. And although if enough time goes by, then I have to relearn them again too. But it's much easier for me to remember drum parts than anything else. Guitar is probably second, and then synth and all that other stuff too. But again, it just depends on how I worked out the song. But yeah, Mercury Werewolf, that one, it's all synthesized. There was no acoustic or electroacoustic instruments on that one, but it was played. I didn't like program MIDI. A lot of times I play the stuff out, on a MIDI controller, and then I'll work that into clips. But I usually play things. Like I don't ever draw stuff out on the piano roll or anything like that. I mean, occasionally I'll do corrections that way, or maybe do a quick drum beat that way. But 99% of the time, I am playing stuff when I record it. Let's see. And Heartbreak Singh says, "What would you prefer, guitar or drums?" It depends on my mood. I mean, I started, the first instrument I ever played was guitar when I was 10. But then maybe I was 9. But I started drums too, right around that same time. It was maybe a few months afterwards. And the reason why really was first my dad bought, well, when I was really, I guess if you want to get super technical, technically I had a drum set when I was really little, 4 or something. But it was this crappy toy, Muppets drum set that my aunt bought me. But I did play on it, and I played on it and I busted through all the heads on it. But back then, those little kids drum sets, the heads were paper. They were just garbage. They're not like the ones today. But seriously, trying to play an instrument, I was 10, and my dad first bought me a guitar, and I couldn't really fit my hand around the neck because I had really, really small hands. I still have small hands, for somebody my age, but when I was a kid, they were tiny. I couldn't even get around the full neck. And so I was also always banging on things. And so at that point, my dad thought that maybe I'd like a drum set more. So he bought me a drum set, and I did. But I liked them both. I would later, I think when I was 13 or 14, I started getting more into guitar. Guitar is really cool, for convenience, because you can always sit around and play guitar, and it doesn't wear you out the way drums do. And plus, it's not very loud, you know, like you can play an acoustic guitar pretty much anywhere and you're not going to bother many people. Or an electric guitar and headphones, you barely bother anybody. So nice. But I mean, drums are such a physical thing, and it's like a release of aggression and like all kinds of stuff. So drums are always going to be special to me. And I find drums, to me, are the most important part of music. Everything else is kind of like, I don't know, like, as long as the drums are good, I mean, yeah, everything has to be good, but if the drums aren't good, it just ruins everything. Like, you can have, like, kind of, like, mediocre bass, you know, and it's not really going to ruin anything, or, like, you can have an adequate guitar part, but if the drums are, like, just weak or not good, it just ruins the entire band or entire song. Like, so many times I've seen bands where it's like, yeah, they're pretty good, but if the drummer was just a little bit better, they would be so much better. Like, it really makes or breaks a band, like, for sure. Drums are very important because people feel the rhythm. You know, they notice that first. It's, like, really, really important. And it can really make or break a band, yeah. So let's move on to the next song. And this one is probably one of my favorite ones on the album, and also one of my favorite videos I've ever made, which you can search this one up to if you're interested. It's called Antimatter Is. And this one is definitely a unique track. So let me go ahead and play it, and then I'll come back with the details. Here we go. Antimatter Is. So, oh, stop. Okay. That one, yeah. That song was a lot of fun to play, and there's a lot going on in there. So let's start with the drums. The drums were recorded in my old studio when I was sharing with Ronan up in Williamsburg, and it was a much bigger room. And the only way that I was able to record those drums was because it was a much bigger room. Because the drums that I used on that recording were this gigantic set that I had put together from various drums that I found in the trash. It was basically a 22-inch kick drum, a 6.5 by 14-inch pearl steel snare drum, 12-inch, 13-inch, 14-inch, 15-inch, and 16-inch rack toms. Or the 16-inch was a floor tom. And they were all single-headed concert toms. So they all had just had the top head on them. And I was using the 505 ride there, Peisty PST5 19-inch rock crash, a Kazaa, is that what those are called? Kazaa, some weird brand 17-inch crash cymbal that I had for a while. That sounded really good, actually, and I sold it, and unfortunately, USPS destroyed that thing in shipping. It looked like a truck ran over it or something. Like, it was crazy. And then also the Meinl HCS bell cymbal again. So that was the drums in there, and I remember when I recorded it, one of the condenser mics I used as the overheads, like I used those, basically the cheap BM800 condenser mics for the overheads on there, and one of them sounded really good, and the other one, though, didn't. Like, the other one, I could not get the level low enough. It kept distorting. So I still used it, though. It's actually in there, but you can't really tell in the music. Once I mixed it in with the music, you couldn't really hear the distortion because there was so much going on that I just left it in there. It was weird. Like, I thought I was going to ruin it, but it actually didn't. But still, it was like, there's one of those BM800s or BM700s or NW700, one of those that I have. It just can't handle loud sounds at all. Like, those mics are real hit or miss. Like, sometimes you'll get one that sounds good. Another time you'll get one that just sounds horrible. I don't know. I mean, they're cheap. They're like $20. But when you get one that sounds good, though, they can work great. Like, sometimes those will sound just as good as a really expensive condenser. So, yeah. Kick drum was the CAD KMB12, KBM12, something like that. Doesn't sound that great. I actually got a better kick drum mic now, but it worked okay on that particular recording. And then the snare drum mic, I think on that one was just an SM57. And let's see, we got a couple questions here. Harpreet Singh says the transferring of the music from left to right ears is perfect, like that woo part in my left ear. Yeah, I'll get to that, what's going on there here in a second. And then Dave Lancini says, do you prefer playing drums without the resonant heads? Do you think it makes a difference? It really does make a difference, and sometimes I do prefer the sound, but it just depends on what I want. That sound, Concert Tom Sounds, is a very particular sound, and not everybody likes it. It's the Phil Collins sound. If you go back and you listen to Phil Collins in the 80s, he always played concert toms, and it makes the drums, they have like a real pop when you hit them, but they don't have a lot of sustain, and they also don't have a lot of low end. They can sound like they have more low end on recording, actually, but when you hear them in the room, sometimes they can sound very thin. But it just depends. Like, some people hate it, other people really like it. I really like it. I don't always like it, but when I want it, like if I think it'll fit in the song, I really, really enjoy that sound. And I really like Slingerland, like they made, and Gretsch, and a lot of drum companies, and actually CNC Percussion, they make them currently. They make concert tom kits, but not a lot of new drum manufacturers make them. But the older ones, like the old Slingerland drums, that the concert tom kits. What's really cool about those is a lot of times you can find those for way cheaper than the the standard Slingerland kits, because a lot of people don't like them, because they're just, and same with Ludwig's too, because they don't want the single-headed toms. But to me, I think they sound really cool. I mean, they definitely have a retro sound. It's more of a 70s, 80s type sound, and they're less, I don't know, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like, you can't use them in as many different types of music, maybe, that you could as, like, standard toms, but they're cool. But I could go on and on about it. Some people love them. There's the drummer from, like, there's, like, I think it's the drummer from Weird Al, yeah, is, like, obsessed with concert toms, and he has, like, a whole website devoted to concert toms. And another person who played them a lot was Hal Blaine, the drummer. If you're not familiar with Hal Blaine, he's, like, probably the most prolific session drummer of all time. Like, he played on, like thousands of famous recordings. And he was actually one of the people that popularized concert toms. And another good thing about them, if you have less mics, and, like, say if you're just using overhead mics and you don't have enough mics for your toms, concert toms tend to pick up a lot better on overhead mics than toms with two heads, because they tend to be louder. Because the sound just projects out the bottoms, and, like, they cut through, So if you're just using overhead, sometimes it's better to have concert toms, because you'll get a more balanced sound that way. Dave Lancini says Peter Criss of Kiss used to play concert toms live, but put his mics in the drums from below. Yeah. Well, it depends. Some videos I've seen them mic'd from below, and I've seen them mic'd from the top too, with Kiss. But when you mic them from below, they sound pretty weird. But it's also kind of cool. It just depends. Hey, Hui, how's it going? Yeah, like, they can sound weird from mic'd from below, but also kind of cool. But they don't have the same, like, pop if you mic them from the top. I don't know. I prefer them mic'd from the top or with the overhead mics. But yeah, that's a lot about concert toms. I should talk about some of the other things of this song. So the name Antimatter is, and that vocal sample you hear in there, that's actually Bob Lazar. And that's from the original Bob Lazar tape. I'm sure a lot of you know who Bob Lazar is now, because Joe Rogan has recently had him on and made him more famous in more recent years, because he's been on Joe Rogan and talked about more. But anyway, if you're not familiar, he is the guy who supposedly worked on alien spacecraft in Area 51. And I've actually followed the Bob Lazar story for a lot of years, and not, like, well before he was ever on Joe Rogan or anything like that. And the Bob Lazar tape is what that sample's from. And if you're not familiar with that, it's actually this VHS that he released way back in the 90s, where he explained, like, basically all the stuff that he claims he saw. And it's actually it's pretty convincing, even though it's produced in the 90s on VHS, and it looks really cheesy and stuff. But when he sits down with, like, a whiteboard and, like, goes over all this science behind it, and it's pretty darn convincing, and, like, everybody says that about Bob Lazar too. If he's a liar, he's a damn good liar. And but anyway, that whole song was taken, basically samples from that video. I used his vocals, and there's, like, kind of music in between, like the scenes and stuff, and, like, when he's driving up in this, like, Firebird in the beginning, there's, like, some music. So I took, like, all these different parts of, like, that tape, and I put them all into Ableton, then I layered them into a drum rack, and I used my pad controller, and I triggered all these different samples from the pad controller, basically playing it live to a click. And then I came up with these different patterns, and once I had, like, a few different patterns that I liked, then I started putting them all together, and then I went and recorded drums to it. And there's probably some synth sounds in there too. Yeah, I know there are, but I think they were all kind of like, I didn't really play any, like, everything was played rhythmically on the pad controller. So like I had some synth samples, I think, and I put them all on the pad controller. And well, except for like there's like a keyboard solo in the middle, or a couple of them. Those I played. I played, just basically on the MIDI controller. But yeah, that was like, so the whole song is very rhythmic. Everything was kind of like playing to like, rhythms, and just playing with these different samples, and like just coming up with different rhythms and stuff. And I thought it really came out pretty cool, and especially with the concert toms and the video I did for this. I wore like this alien mask and went up to Corona Park in Queens, where the big globe is and all that stuff, and like recorded the whole thing on VHS, like real VHS, and like I thought that one's pretty cool. So if you get a chance, check out the video for that. It's pretty entertaining, I think. So let's see. I thought Phil Collins made the concert toms famous. Yeah, well, I mean, Phil Collins definitely was known for using concert toms because he was out in the spotlight a lot. But Hal Blaine was well before Phil Collins, and probably influenced Phil Collins quite a bit. He basically influenced everybody, because Hal Blaine played on like all the Beach Boys stuff, like all these like popular albums, like popular singles. If you just look at his Wikipedia page, I mean, it's insane how many songs that guy was on. And he had somebody in LA made him a custom set of concert toms out of fiberglass, and he put them over, like he had a Ludwig kick and snare, and then he used these fiberglass concert toms on top of those. And I also think he was one of the first. I think Pearl Drums kind of got their idea to make fiberglass drums based on that, because before that, I really don't think there were many fiberglass drums. I think he was kind of the innovator in that too. So let's move along. I don't want this stream to take like 6 hours, so I'm going to move on to the next song. And this was pretty short, so it's called I Fetch. And let's go ahead and take a listen to this one, and then I'll talk about all the details on that one. So, like I said, that one's pretty short. And actually, when I did this song, it was actually much longer, but I thought it was boring. So I just cut off like a good 4 or 5 minutes from that song. But as a short little segue, I thought it was cool. I just didn't want to go on and on forever. But I Fetch, the name, actually, I was at Bed Bath & Beyond, and there was this thing. It was like this product called iFetch, and it was a toy. It was like a robotic toy that would play with your dog. Like it would shoot out a ball, and then the dog would come get it and bring it back. And the picture on it, I wish I could find this thing. If somebody finds it, feel free to post a link. There was this photo on the product, and I just thought it was the loneliest. It looked like the loneliest dog in the world is at home alone with this like crappy like Bed Bath and Beyond like robot fetch device. Like it was so weird, you know. And I thought the song had this kind of lonely vibe to it, and like it just made me think of that iFetch thing that I saw. And I thought that would be a good name for it. But that one was all synths, and I think they were all plugins, and I think everything was just right in Ableton. I didn't really do anything crazy or that interesting for that one. You know, I played around with the mix and effects and stuff, but nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, maybe my K1 was used too for the bass sound. I don't really remember, but yeah, like I said, it was just it was a longer thing, and I cut it down to be quite a bit shorter, almost like a segue, you know, to the next song. And so the next one, the next one that's coming up, Dark Light, has to be the least creative title on the entire album, and it's basically just because that's the name of the plugin that I used, like for a lot of it. But let's just play it, and then I'll talk about it. Actually, I'm cutting like half. But if you want to check it out, check out the rest of the album. If you want to hear the full song. But I think now this is probably my least favorite song on the entire album, which is probably why I just cut it off. At the time, I really, really liked it. I mean, I still like it, you know, but it's like, I think it's just too long. But anyway, Dark Light. It is a plugin. It's a UVI plugin, UVI workstation plugin, and it's based on the Fairlight CMI. And the Fairlight CMI, if you're not familiar, is the sampler that was one of the earliest like computer samplers that was made in the 1980s. A really, really cool instrument. I've always really loved the sound of it. And the Darklight is a really, really cool emulator of it. It sounds great. It's got a ton of great sounds in it. And so that song, basically, Darklight, was when I first got the plugin, and I was just, seeing what I could do with it. So originally, Darklight was just supposed to be like the working title. Like, I wasn't going to keep it. But I don't know why something happened, and I just forgot to rename it or something, and then just got lazy. I don't know. Something happened where, like, I just forgot to rename it. I don't know. But I should have renamed it and I never did, but it doesn't really matter. But now it's my least favorite song on the album. But I still really like the sounds in it, but I just think it's a little bit too repetitive and all that stuff. But, whatever. Anyway, let me read some of these comments here. Hui Mendez says, I think they're very popular already in Europe. They're very well known. They're, in fact, my favorite band. Oh, no, I mean the Concert Toms. I know that, the band... whatever band you just named, I forget, popular. But let's see. Harpert Singh says this song sounds like 80s, 90s advertisement for an electronic device. Yeah, totally. You can really master sounds. Hui says, great touches. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people enjoy that track. They've told me that they liked it. It's not that I hate it, but it's just my least favorite on the album. But it was just an exercise for the plugin, and I thought it fit with the rest of the songs enough, to be on there. It is a little bit different than the rest of the album. It doesn't have the kind of like the rest of the album has this dark vibe to it in a way, and that one doesn't. So in a way, it was kind of nice to kind of lift you up a little bit in the middle of the album, I think, because the rest of it, especially from here on out, sounds kind of. It's kind of dark, but in a weird way. It's not like dark, like, I don't know. It's just dark, weird, like almost like mysterious, dark sounds. And like that was kind of like what I was going for, because I was watching a lot of, these old 90s paranormal shows and stuff like that, like Sightings and, like I said, the Bob Lazar tape and like all this stuff. And so I was kind of getting inspiration from all of those different sources, and that was kind of what the theme of this whole album was about. So let me move on to the next song. And I think this one is probably one of the more interesting ones on here. This one and, well, the next three I think I really like quite a bit. So let's go ahead and listen to Qubit, and then I'll talk about this one. And I might cut a couple of these short just for time, just because these are kind of long, these last three, but let's check it out. So here we go. made it through that whole track. Qubit. That one is, yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I feel weird saying that about my own song, but I do really like that one because it's got a really weird, dark. It's like a dark meditation. Like it's really, I don't know. I was really happy with the way that one came out. It reminds me. I was thinking the sounds I was thinking of when I was making that was kind of like early Peter Gabriel. With that kind of drum sound in there, that like kind of like percussion-y, lo-fi drum sound, and the samples again. I think a lot of the samples in that one were from the show Sightings. So I got a lot of the Sightings. If you're not familiar with, was this 1990s paranormal show. It was actually a great show. Really, really good if you're into that kind of stuff. I mean, I love those kind of shows. Like, I'm a huge Ancient Aliens fan, and like all that stuff. I will watch anything like that. Like, totally. But Sightings was one of the better ones. Like, it had really, really good guests and a lot of like good, kind of reputable material. Some of it was kind of ridiculous, but that's the fun of it. And it had a lot of like really cool, cheesy, new agey type music. And so in the vocal samples in that too were, I believe they're from Sightings, because the guy's talking about the legend of the sixth son. The sixth son. I'm not sure exactly what he was talking about in there, but it was something, I just thought it sounded cool. And I think originally I had called the song The Sixth Son, or The Legend of the Sixth Son, or something like that, but I thought it was too long. Qubit, if you're not familiar with what a qubit is, that's actually has to do with quantum computing. Basically, in computing, we have bits, digital ones and zeros. Now, quantum computing is very bizarre, and a qubit is the bit. It's basically the equivalent of the bit in quantum computing. Now, in traditional computing, bit is either a 1 or a 0 because it's binary. But a qubit is neither, and it's both. So that's why it's really, really bizarre. Because, I mean, when you get into quantum physics, this is when all of reality just starts to break down and nothing makes sense. The fact that they're even somehow making computers like this, or at least claiming to be making computers like this, I'm not fully convinced, honestly, that they're actually doing it. And maybe that's a topic for another live stream. But a lot of companies are claiming they're doing quantum computing. Maybe they are. But if it were to be true quantum computing, I think the very act of even having the computer would interact, and this is getting into some pretty deep philosophical stuff and quantum physics, but I think the mere act of having the computer would break down the quantum function, in my opinion, or the quantum, what's the term? Because basically everything in a quantum state, a qubit, is in a it's the wave function. That's what the word I was looking for. Everything's in a determined state in quantum reality or quantum physics. So the act of observation collapses the wave function. So I think if you were basically, the very act of creating a quantum computer should collapse a wave function, in my opinion. So whatever results they're getting, I don't necessarily believe they're quantum. Maybe they're close, but I don't. It seems to be counter. I don't know. They say they've found a way to not, break down the wave function. I just don't totally understand it. I don't think anybody does, to be honest. Like, it's really weird. Shit is bizarre, man. And James, no, I'm not a developer. I mean, I've kind of played around with a little bit, and like I said before, I made some plugins, but those were all using like easy things. Like I'm not like I could do like basic, like what's bash scripting and stuff like that, but I'm not. To me, it gets boring. I'm just not that into it. Louis Mendez says, I'm blown away, music and science together. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm interested in this stuff, but I'm not a scientist either, and I actually don't even know that much about it, but I've read a little bit. And the more you learn about quantum physics, the weirder it gets. And this is what's really strange. I mean, the thing is with that kind of stuff is like, it basically disproves reality. And what I mean by that, I mean, if you're, I know this can sound woo and like whatever, like new agey and stuff, but if you've ever like really looked into quantum physics and like the double slit experiment and like all of that stuff, it really makes reality realize how completely bizarre this reality we live in is. And it really, the whole like possibility that we live in like some giant simulation really seems to be quite plausible. And if you're not familiar with the double slit experiment, I'm sure a lot of you are, but basically to boil it down to a very simple explanation without taking too much time is they shot all these particles to these two openings, in like a piece of matter or something. And when they were observing it, they're watching what happened, they behave like particles. When they don't look at them, they behave like waves. So what this means is the mere act of humans, or anything, we think it's anything, it could just be humans or it could be any living object, observing reality influences it. And this is really, really strange, and it's not easily explainable. And in fact, this is why we have like people talking about, multiple universes and multiverse and all this stuff, because it's the only way they can make this make sense without basically admitting to it possibly just meaning that nothing is real. And that we live in some type of simulation. Because to me, this actually makes the most sense, that it is a simulation. Because if you look at video games, and if you look at, like, say you have a world, a level in a video game that you haven't reached yet. The code is there to make that level exist, but the level itself doesn't exist until you get to it. Like, it's not there until you're looking at it, until it's on your screen. So our reality could actually be exactly that. It doesn't really construct. The code is there, but it doesn't really assemble until we activate it by interacting. And that's really, I think, the most plausible explanation for all of this, weird quantum physics stuff that seems to not make any sense. If you want to really read a very interesting book about this, check out the book called Biocentrism. By, I believe his name is Robert Lanza, something like that. But he is one of the guys. He's a very brilliant guy. He's a scientist who helped map the human genome, and he wrote this book called Biocentrism, basically disproving reality. Like, that reality comes from the organism, not the other way around. We don't exist in a world. The world exists in us. And he put together all this evidence that seems to prove that. And it's really interesting. And at the same time, kind of scary. So, anyway, let's see here. Got some more comments. Rui Mendez says, feel free to be philosophical. It's your video anyway. You're the boss. Thank you. Harpreet Singh says, I believe in multiple realities. And yeah, that could be true too. Maybe. I don't know. Rui Mendez says interpretation is everything. It's the way to see the same thing from different angles. Yeah. I don't know, man. Stuff's weird. Stuff's really, really weird. It seems to be getting weirder and weirder. Oh, there's a movie. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of not the butterfly effect, the Mandela effect, which is that a lot of people saying that reality is changing and people are remembering things a different way than they are. Nelson Mandela. A lot of people. The reason why people say that is because they think that he died in prison, but it turns out he didn't. And but a lot of people remember him dying in prison. The Bernstein Bears, that's another one. That's one that I definitely remember them being the Bernstein Bears, not the Berenstain Bears, which is what they are now. Luke, I am your father in Star Wars. But anyway, there's a movie called The Mandela Effect that I watched on Amazon Prime, which was surprisingly good. I thought it would be terrible. I thought it would just be a really bad movie based on this stuff, but it was surprisingly decent. I actually quite enjoyed it. But check that out if you get a chance. And Biocentrism by Robert Lanza, great book, really, really interesting. Anyway, 2 more songs, and this one coming up here is called Chief. Well, okay, I'll give you the story behind the name on that here in a little bit, but let's listen to the song first, and then we'll get to it. So here we go, Chief. So that one, Chief. All right, that just at the end. So let me look at the comments here. Untamed Beast says, how long did you make the drum takes parts, or did you play right through? That one I actually played right through. And there's actually a video of me on playing this one. There's a drum playthrough. I don't think I titled it drum playthrough. I should do that. But if you search on my channel, Demonic Sweaters Chief, then it should pop up. But it's, you know, I combine it with some other video and stuff too as like an effect. But I am actually playing what you hear on the recording in that video. And so that one, well, first off, it's in 5/4, which I love playing in 5/4. It's a really cool time signature. So you can just count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. Just has a cool groove. And the title Chief, the reason why I call it a Chief is I was going to get a coffee, and the guy working, like the barista working at the cafe, like, can I get anything else for you, Chief? And I was like, no thanks. But I just would, for some reason, it's like a pet peeve of mine when people call me Chief. Like, it seems like, I don't know, it's like kind of disrespectful in a way. But at the same time, I think it's kind of funny, like Chief. Like I don't know, it's not very PC either. Like, people get outraged about everything these days. I'm surprised people haven't gotten outraged, like they haven't started calling that racist yet, you know, because like everybody's outraged about everything. But other than that, there's really no meaning to it. I had that in my head because I think it happened when I was like recording the song, or like about to record the song, and I just kept thinking how funny it was that this guy's calling me Chief. And so that's what the name of the song was. That song actually was the only song on this entire album that I produced in Linux. Everything else was done in Ableton. That one in particular was done, I think I created the first like synth parts in, it might have been LMMS, or I might have done the whole thing in Mixbus. I know that the drums were recorded in Mixbus, but I think I started the synth parts and did all the sequencing, in LMMS. And then recorded the drums and added more synths and stuff in Mixbus. I'm pretty sure that's how I did it. So that one, though, yeah, it was 5/4. And let's see. Rodrigo Blotti says, I felt relaxed and anxious at the same time. It definitely has its vibe. Yeah, that is a good description. Not sure why some of my music ends up that way, but I'm not sure if it's good or bad. But thanks. I think it's cool. It's like it kind of is like anticipating something happening, I think, is like kind of what. And I also think 5/4 kind of does that, you know, the time signature. Kind of gives you this like anticipation type sound, you know, that something's about to happen because it's not your normal 4 beats, you know. But yeah, so that one too, there wasn't a lot of sampling going on in there. It was mostly, I think, just the main sound, which is like a vibraphone type sound, and that was from, I believe, a sound font that I had in Linux. And then live drums, I used my Tama Imperial Star kit in the small carpet drum room, 2018 drum room, and the cymbals in that one, I was using these hi-hats that are these Avanti, like they're really crappy hi-hats, but I love how they sound. I have to get those things back. They're actually at a music school that I've been quarantined from, Staten Island, that I was teaching at. So I had them there on my student kit, and unless I go over there and get them, I know she'll just keep them because that's kind of how she rolls. But I have to go get those things, but because they're hard to find, and they sound bad good. They're like so bad that they're good. Like when you open them up all the way and hit them like completely open, they're like they sustain for like 2 seconds. They're like, and then they're just like done. But I love them. They sound really cool. So I use those. And then the ride was my New Vader 22-inch ride, which is also kind of a weird ride and sounds cool. One of the crashes was this vinyl, that thing called Kinetic Crash. And that thing is really interesting sounding. And actually, I use it in the next song, too, that's coming up. It's like got a wavy edge on it, and it's kind of quiet, and it's an 18-inch, but I think it sounds really neat. It sounds really cool. And in addition to that, I used this camber, a vintage camber brass crash cymbal that I used on. You know what? I think I skipped Return Home. I did. Anyway, whatever. I could talk about that one a little bit at the end here, but I'll just talk about it right now. And then we'll get back to Cheap. But Return Home is actually off of an earlier album originally called Return Home, but I didn't have drums on it. So the original one was just all done on this little Yamaha handheld sequencer. And I thought it was a cool song, and I made a drum playthrough video to it with live drums. And so that's actually on YouTube as well. So you can find Return Home with the live drum playthrough, which is actually this recording. And I just liked it, so I put it on the album. So Return Home was actually an older song, though, before that. I don't know why I skipped that one when I was playing this back. I guess I just lost track. So yeah, Chief, there's not a whole lot of story behind that one other than just experimenting with the 5/4 time signature and the different sounds. And then going through and just kind of using these different interesting sounding cymbals that I had, and I just wanted to make a video basically, and that's how that came about. So video and song and drums were recorded at the same time. Same with Return Home, and that's all. Let's see. More. Nick Z says, have you thought of playing your songs with a full live band? Yeah, I'd love to. The problem with that is it's hard. It's really hard to find people that'll do it. Well, it's hard to find people that will do it, number one, and number two, that can do it. I found some guys that would do it, but they couldn't do it. No offense to the guys, they were really cool, and it was really nice of them to have the enthusiasm to want to try, but they couldn't handle the music I was doing because it was too complex. Like, I use a lot of complex time signatures, and a lot of things are very subtle, that I do in like playing, and then they just couldn't do it. Like the synth playing couldn't handle what I was doing. So I've thought about this in the future. If I ever get to the point where I have like enough money, I will just hire musicians to play, because they have to be able to do it. Like they have to be able to play it. It's not like I'm playing like really virtuoso type music, but it's not your typical it's not your typical stuff. So they have to have one, a unique way about their playing, and then two, be able to listen really well and figure stuff out. Because I can't be spending like a bunch of time trying to teach people the stuff that I come up with, because it just takes too long. I mean, I think with the other guys that I was trying it with, we got like 2 songs, and it took like months and months to get those 2 songs down, and they still didn't really sound like how I wanted them to sound. Kind of like, I'd rather just keep doing it myself on YouTube. Because I mean, really, too, it's like I go through all that work, and what is it even for? Like playing, well, especially now, but even pre-quarantine, go out and play shows, and like the shows are like not half, they're not even like 1/10 as rewarding as YouTube is a lot of the time. Because I don't know, playing live just weird. It's not like it used to be. Anyway, more comments here. Rui Mendez says, shame on you borrowing crappy cymbals. Well, actually, no, the crappy cymbals were mine. They're borrowing the ones I have at the school. I brought them over there to teach with, and they've just been there since quarantine. Rui Mendez, they sound great, though. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like opposed to playing generic or crappy cymbals. Like, I like certain ones. They sound really good. Untamed Beast says you have all the instruments and equipment to do it yourself. Yeah, I have pretty much everything. So you don't need that much. I mean, you really only need a computer when I make music. But it is good to have more things. You get inspired by different pieces of equipment. You can take it too far though and get like going crazy buying stuff, which I've definitely done. But I kind of make that work out being a YouTuber and just doing reviews of things. So at least if I buy a lot of things, and especially if you buy popular gear, they tend to pay for themselves by using affiliate links and all that stuff. I wanted to mention before I move on to the last track, if you didn't see my posts either here on YouTube, my post, or my Instagram posts about wanting you guys to be in my new video, the video I'm doing for this song called Rock From Home, very rock song. It's going to have, basically the video concept is to have a lot of people just rocking out of home, either like moshing in their bedroom or playing air guitar or playing real instruments or whatever. If you want to hear the track, send me an email to rockfromhomevideo@gmail.com, rockfromhomevideo@gmail.com, and I'll send you a link, a private link to the track. You can check it out before it gets released and make a video to it. Just go nuts. I want to, the whole concept of the song is just like basically about, all of us being locked in this pandemic and not letting it stop us from rocking out, continuing making music, continuing, doing what we're doing, making the best of it. And all these new songs that I'm doing right now are very different than what I'm playing for you here in this live stream. They're all of the ones I'm working on right now are very rock. They're all guitar, bass, and drums and vocals, and they're, just 90s-ish grunge indie type stuff and a little bit of metal too. Rui, it's rockfromhomevideo@gmail.com. That's email address. rockfromhomevideo@gmail.com. Let me post it. rockfrom@gmail.com. So yeah, send me an email there if you want to hear the song first. You don't have to hear the song first. You can just rock out to whatever, and I'll put it in the video. I've been getting a lot of good response so far. I have a few videos already of people sending their stuff. So yeah, I think it's going to be really cool once it gets all done. Again, it's very different than this stuff that I'm playing for you today. More straightforward rock and with vocals. Like this whole album is instrumental. But it's cool to be singing again, and I'm kind of going outside of my box in the vocals in a lot of this stuff. A lot of it I'm singing really, with a gritty, almost punk metal type voice, which I don't think I've ever really done before. And I'm actually really surprised at like how it's coming out of me. Like I was like really kind of I don't know, like the first time I tried it, I was like coughing a lot and like choking because it was like really difficult. But as I kept doing it, I kept getting better at it. And now when I listen back to it, I'm like, wow, I can't believe that's me. Like it doesn't even sound like me. But yeah. Okay, let's get to the last song. And this one, in addition to Antimatter, I think is probably my favorite song on here. And it's kind of the title track off of the album called The Scroct. And let's listen to it. And then I'm going to go to the bathroom while this is playing. And I will come back and talk about details. This one's pretty interesting. the Scroct. So, the Scroct, Turn of the Scroct, the name actually comes from my friend, old friend, one of my best friends, Chad Sign, who actually did the artwork for this album as well. So that cover painting, I have a, where is that? Is it close here? Let me see. Hold on one second. I have a, yeah, I think I have it right here. I have the original painting right here. Just so you guys can see. It's actually a full-blown painting that he did of this creature called the Scroct. And I thought it was, given the whole, like, paranormal type stuff, themes that I was doing in this album, I thought it'd be cool to call this, this album Turn of the Scroct. And I thought, this would be the only problem with it is it wasn't square, so I had to do the text on the sides to kind of make it, fit as an album cover. But that's the story behind the title. Now, the story behind that song, let me look at the comments here real quick. Oh yeah, the mixture of hi-hats and ride is great. Thank you. Yeah, I definitely was trying out some new things on the drums there. That was also in 5/4, like Chief. And I was doing, actually there's hi-hat, and I also have that trash stack, the 12-inch trash stack, closed very tight. And so I was doing stuff between that, hi-hat, and ride, and also had that kinetic crash, the bell cymbal. I believe, oh no, I was using the Peisty 505 ride on that one, and then probably the camber crash too. So quite a bit of cymbals going on there. Let's see. Rui Mendez says, do you firstly picture the full length of a song in your head and then play through, or does it come with the flow? It just depends. I mean, for the drums, a lot of times the drums are the last thing I do because I have to go to a different place to record them, unless I'm doing it here on the electronic kit. But a lot of times, even then, still, I just got it kind of into that habit of like creating the whole song first and then putting the drums to it last, because I like to have it all worked out beforehand. That way, I can think of a good drum part. That one, the idea of that song actually came from when I was actually at the gym, and I was on the not the elliptical machine, but that other thing called, it's like an elliptical machine, but it kicks your ass way harder. It's like the stride thing. I forget what it's called. But anyway, I was on that, and I was listening to the album TNT by the band Tortoise. Now, if you've never listened to Tortoise, you absolutely should. Tortoise were an amazing, well, they're still an amazing band. Listen to all of their albums. They're from Chicago, and everything they've ever put out is great. But I will say, especially the albums Millions Now Living Will Never Die, TNT, and It's All Around You. Those three are my absolute favorites. But I like everything they've ever done. But I was listening to TNT, and the cool thing about Tortoise is they combined a lot of different sounds, like electronic sounds and acoustic sounds. And John McIntyre, one of their drummers, several of them play drums. They all switch around. John McIntyre was also their producer, and he produced a lot of really great indie stuff in the 90s. But he was so creative in Tortoise, or is, where there's like always a lot of stuff going on, and like stuff's fading in and out, and there's like all this cool stuff. And I was listening to that album on headphones while I was at the gym, and I was just like, nobody really does stuff like this anymore, where they have like, all this amazing creative mixture of acoustic and electric sounds, like, with a lot of stuff going on, but also kind of being chill at the same time. Like, it's not like, I don't know, like, and I was just like, I want to do something like that. That was the inspiration for this particular song. And so having all those different filter effects, like especially at the end, there's like a filter effect that comes in on the drums. That was definitely directly influenced by Tortoise, because that's a trick that John McIntyre pulls a lot. And it sounds really cool. And like there's just a lot of really cool production tricks that he does. And especially on, I want to say, It's All Around You. Like that album has amazing production. So right after this stream, go and search Tortoise It's All Around You and listen to the full album on headphones, and you'll be blown away because it is just so good. I mean, there's the coolest stuff. And actually, they just played last year. I got to see them here in Prospect Park at the band shell outside for free, and they played the full album of TNT start to finish with no interruptions. It was really, really cool. So I got to see them do that full album that I was listening to that inspired this song. And it was after I made this song, but really, really great. They've always been one of my favorite bands. Like, they're just really creative dudes. Really cool stuff. Oh, wow. Untamed Beast. Thank you so much, man. Thanks for the chat, the super chat. I think that's what that is. Where are you? SA. Where's that? Anyway, thanks for watching. You stay safe, too. And thanks for the support. But, yeah, so the Scroct, definitely inspired by Tortoise. You know, I put my own touch on it. You know, I think it still fit with this whole album, and I felt like that was a good one to kind of get the title of the, you know, almost the title track, because I thought it encompassed a lot of the feel of what was going on in this whole album. The only one that I don't think totally fits, like I said before, is Darklight. But I do think, too, that it's kind of like, you know, it's a good transitional. Oh, wow, South Africa. That's amazing. So cool. South Africa. Listen to this stream. Thanks a lot. I really, really appreciate you being here. I appreciate all you guys being here and just all the support I get on this channel. It's really, really cool. Really cool. You know, I've been at this music thing for a long time, since I was 10, like I said before. And to finally have a place, you know, like YouTube, where I can come here and do something like this, stream an album of mine and have you guys here listening and talking to you and be able to answer questions and do tutorials and all this stuff that I do on the channel, it's like really amazing. I really, really appreciate it. Love being able to do this. You know, that's the really cool thing about the 21st century and the time that we live right now. Despite all the other problems we have going on, we have stuff like this, which is really cool. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the whole album in a nutshell. I mean, a lot of the inspiration, like I said, came from these 1990s paranormal shows, you know, and like the incidental music in these shows, like Sightings, and then the Bob Lazar tape, and you know, other shows, Unsolved Mysteries, like the old ones. I love all that stuff. We need more electric drum stuff, says Harpreet Singh. You mean like for the nitro drums? I have a plan. There's going to be some cool videos coming up, but you got to be patient because I'm in a transitional period right now, actually. And if I point over there where the Alesis was, you'll see that it's not there. Don't worry. We're going to have some more Alesis type videos coming, but it's going to be different. Be a little different. Still have the nitro module, though. So once I get the rest of these, that's that Tama, that thing called Club Jam, Club Jam Mini. Well, so, okay, I might as well tell you guys the whole story here for those of you that are on the stream, because I was going to keep it as a surprise. But, so, okay, I got the Club Jam Mini, which is the 2-piece drum set, which you just saw right there. It's just kick and snare. And I really, really liked it. I was like, this thing is awesome. And then they sell the add-on pack for the Club Jam Mini, which is the rack tom and floor tom. And it's the really cool sizes. The rack tom is a 10x6, and then the floor tom is a 14x7, so it's really shallow. And the whole thing is just really small and compact, and I thought it was just really cool, and it looked great, and I was like, I got to get this add-on pack too. I have to have the complete set. But I was like, I don't have space. Do not have space for any more stuff. So I was like, I have to get rid of something. So don't freak out. I got rid of the Alesis Nitro Mesh. Now, before you freak out, I have a whole other Alesis Nitro Mesh module still here that I bought for another project, but I never ended up using. So my original idea for the kick and snare was to add them to the nitro mesh and convert them to triggers. So instead of doing that, I'm actually converting an entire set. I'm going to, basically I have all mesh heads on the way for this drum set, as well as acoustic to electronic triggers coming. And I have the Alesis Nitro module and all of the stands, and I have cymbals, and I also got a hi-hat controller on the way that is going to be able to use a real hi-hat stand. And so everything is going to be real drums, but with mesh heads and electronic cymbals. And it's going to have the Alesis Nitro Mesh module. So I'll still be able to do Nitro tutorials and programming tutorials and all that stuff, but I will be playing a Tama Club Jam in replacement for the Nitro Mesh pads. So it's going to be really cool. I'm going to go through this whole process in videos. You guys will see the whole building of the kit and all that stuff. I already have, I would say, about 50% of the stuff that I need. A lot of it is on order, and it should be here this week. Before I do that, though, I'm going to use this Club Jam outside. I think this Friday with Ronan, we're going to go to Brooklyn Bridge Park. We're going to play live there, probably early in the morning. It won't be a live stream. It'll be out as a video. But it'll probably be early in the morning because we want to minimize run-ins with the NYPD. So we're going to go there early and probably just do a couple of songs very quickly, just get in and out. And we want to just be in a cool location and play outside. I don't think we get in serious trouble if we got caught. I mean, you're supposed to have a permit if you use amplified sound. If I went there just to play drums, it's actually fully within my legal rights to do so, and I wouldn't get in trouble at all. But since Ronan's going to be there, he'll have an amplifier and a guitar. So our plan is just to do like 3 or 4 songs and then just get in and out and then go somewhere else and see what we can come up with. So I don't think we'll run into too many problems that way. And I've done something like that in the past in the subway, played without permits with amplifiers. So as long as you're fast, you can usually get away with it. So hopefully that'll go okay. I think it will. Let's see. Uwe Mendez says, what about your neighbors? Well, I think that's before I explain the stuff that you wrote that. Harpreet Singh says, I'm waiting to see what you do with the hi-hat cymbals for electronic. How will you put 2 cymbals? Well, you don't actually use 2 cymbals. You just use one. Let me show you the hi-hat cymbal I got. And here's what I'm going to use. And I've done videos about one of these before, the Pintech TC series. And these are actually very cheap. And this one's really cheap. It's the 10-inch. So you only need one. But what it is, it's a controller that goes under the hi-hat here. And it has like a little button on it. And so you put this on the hi-hat stand, and when you step down, it pushes down that button and works as like basically the same thing as if you had the foot controller on the Alesis Nitro Mesh. So, and I know these work. I've seen them on Justin from 65 Drums. He's done reviews on them on his channel. So I know it should work. I think, I'm 99% sure it should work good. And so I have this is going to be my hi-hat. I have my other TC series that I used as my third crash. This is going to be my ride. And then I have 2 more Pintech cymbals coming that are going to be my 2 crashes. The only thing that's going to be a little bit different is I'm only going to have 2 toms as opposed to 3 toms that I had on the Nitro before. That'll be the only thing that's different. But I could always program a cymbal as a tom if I wanted to, whatever, so not worried about that. So we'll see how it goes. I'm really excited about it. I think it'll be really cool. And plus, it won't take up a lot of space because these drums are really small. I'm just super stoked. And plus, I'll be able to swap out the heads and switch it back to acoustic when I want to, go around and play with this drum set outside somewhere or take it to another studio or whatever. Right now, I actually, for the acoustic heads, I'm putting all Evans hydraulics on there because I want like a thick head to kind of, well, for one, I think that'll make it a little bit, I mean, it's already going to be kind of quiet because they're so small, but hydraulics are so thick that they tend to be a little quieter than other drum heads. So I wanted to kind of make it a little bit quieter just because we're going to have this little amp and be outside. And plus, the fact that they're so thick, those heads, they kind of lower the pitch a little bit too. So having the thick drum heads on there will make it a little quieter and also make it a little bit boomier, you know, and fuller sounding because they're so little. So I kind of want that because we're going to be doing like kind of rock sounding music, and I think it'll be cool. And when we do the live show, you know, outside, I'm only going to use the 2-piece kit. I'm just going to take kick and snare and ride and hi-hat. That's all I'm going to use. It's easier to move around. Let's see. James says Justin is a Roland snob. Just kidding. I love his channel. Yeah. Well, he's definitely he's really knowledgeable about electronic drums, without a doubt. The best resource on YouTube, or probably online, period. Like that guy is great. A wealth of knowledge for electronic drums, and I love his channel. Watch a lot of his videos, and before I bought my Alesis Nitro Mesh, he helped me, you know, basically by watching his videos and his reviews, that was how I was able to decide. The thing about, I don't know, I don't have any criticisms of the channel at all. I think it's great. He does really good. He's got the same camera as I have, but I never really use mine anymore. I just use my iPhone all the time now. Hardly ever use my Canon because honestly, I like the iPhone look better, and iPhone has a better mic. Crazy. Really don't need an SLR. That's one thing I've been meaning to talk about, you know, on this channel. If any of you ever want to start a YouTube channel, I mean, I used to always be all about Android, but I just can't anymore. You know, iPhone's just, the quality of the video camera on an iPhone is just so good, and the microphones and all that stuff, you know, it just works so good. You could start a YouTube channel with just an iPhone. Totally. Even like, you don't even have to have an iPhone 11. You could get the SE and it would still be just as good. You know, you could do great videos with an iPhone SE. Totally. And great audio too. Like when I record, if I play drums in my studio and have just this iPhone without like the kit even mic'd up, it still sounds really good. Like it doesn't distort at all. Really nice. Really, really nice. Let's see. James says, I had Nitro Mesh last year. Got lucky. It was able to get real size kit that was already converted, and I eventually ended up getting a Strike Pro module. Love the feeling of the regular size kit. Oh, wow. That's really cool. You know, I was thinking that probably eventually I would upgrade the module too. I just have this extra module, you know, lying around here that I never used, so might as well use it. Plus, everybody likes these Nitro videos, at least for the time being, because I know that eventually this kit, you know, the Nitro Mesh is going to go out of style and something new will come out. Maybe they'll come out with a Nitro 2, or there'll be some other kit that will, you know, come out and become more popular. But I actually thought it would be sooner than, you know, I can't believe the Nitro Mesh is still, like, that thing sells like hotcakes. Alesis, that's got to be, well, it is, I know for a fact now, the #1 selling electronic drum set of all time is the Alesis Nitro Mesh. And I think, you know, Alesis has got to be loving this thing because they have sold so many of those. It's crazy. And, you know, I like the sounds. You know, I've talked about how, like, you know, a lot of people want to use Easy Drummer and stuff like that, which is cool, but, I mean, I'm happy with the built-in sounds on it. I know they don't sound amazing, but if you mix them right and if you do some, you know what you're doing and recording, you can, like, I really like how it sounds on Driving Songs, the EP I released. I think it sounds great. You know, the only weak point really are the cymbals, the hi-hat especially. But if you're playing, you know, to like rock music or a lot of stuff, it'll work. You know, it may not be as expressive as a real hi-hat or like some better electronic ones, but it's totally good enough. And you can make pro-sounding recordings with it, with the built-in sounds. Absolutely. Let's see. James says they sell the Strike module separate now. It's pricey, but not as bad as the Roland high-end stuff. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, Roland stuff is ridiculous. Though I was looking at the TD 17K, KV, something like that. TD 17, I think that's what it's called. But they have, Roland has a pretty nice set for about $1,200 now, which is, that's cheap for Roland. And I was contemplating it. I was considering it, but I was like, nah, I'll stick with the Nitro and do this conversion kit first. Then maybe when I move, maybe get one of the Rolands. Let's see. James says I find module has a few good kits. The rest are just filler. Yeah, I mean that's like a lot of stuff. I mean you always have to make your own kits. I think that's pretty much key. I think a lot of the Roland ones sound terrible too. Like I hear them but I think a lot of people's drums sound terrible. Like mainstream drummers, like 99% of the drummers I hear on like demos and stuff that are like supposedly good sounding drums, they sound like plastic buckets to me. Like I think they sound horrible. Like I hate that like plastic, like that kick drum sound that's just like a plastic bucket. I really don't like it. And the snare drum too. They always have that. It's like really tight, like ridiculously tight, and everything sounds like plastic buckets. Like, yeah, they cut through, but I don't like them. They don't sound good to me. And like I think a lot of the electronic drum sets, they try to go for that sound. So 99% of them are not going to sound good to me. Harpreet Singh says everyone buys Alesis because the price. If Roland was not too pricey, I would buy them. Yeah, I mean Alesis definitely. I mean, they found a niche market. Because there was not any decent electronic drums for under $1,000 before. Nothing, like nothing at all, like remotely decent. All the ones that were under 1,000 were crap. So Alesis found a market and they produced something that was like pretty good for the money. But I think that what's the Roland one? I think it's the 17 KV or KVMs. Let me look. Roland. 17K. Let me. That thing called TD 17 KVX. KV. They have a few different versions, but yeah, even the wow, that. Yeah, about $1,100, and those, I would totally get one of those. Now I think that's not too terribly expensive, and I'm sure compared to the Alesis, it probably has way more features, and I think it would probably sound pretty amazing, and totally worth $1,100 is that's quite a chunk of change, but compared to the other Rolands, considering they have some that are like $6,000, and the fact that you can load your own samples into it, and the pads are decently sized. It's got a nice size snare drum on it, dual zone cymbals and all that stuff. I think it's probably very worth the price. It looks really good. Let's see. Yeah, Nick Z says Roland stuff is always way overpriced. Hui Mendez says, I bought mine Alesis Nitro Mesh a month ago, and honestly, I thought it would fall apart once I started hitting it hard. Unfortunately, I was wrong because it's very sturdy. I'm already thinking upgrade. Yeah, they are sturdy. I mean, I bashed on mine for a year, and like I didn't have a single issue. Like nothing broke, nothing came loose. Never had a single problem with the Nitro. So I hear people saying that they're not well made, and I just think they're wrong. Or maybe they got a bad one. Maybe it's inconsistent, because mine was always great. Never had an issue. So anyway, guys, I think that's going to be all for today. Thanks a lot for watching and coming on and hanging out. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Check out Turn of the Scroct. You can download it from anthillrecordings.bandcamp.com, or you can just listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, all the stuff. It's all there. All my music is available on all of the streaming services, no matter where you are. Deezer, it's on QQ in China, like it's everywhere. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned for more great videos. Tomorrow I have a root canal scheduled, so I probably won't be doing a video tomorrow. Hopefully I won't be in too much pain, so I'll be able to come back for one on Wednesday. But yeah, I've had a lot of dental work here recently, but got to get it done. So at least they numb you up first. Let's see. Harper Singh says, please review the biggest drum collab and please tell how Rich does his fills. What is that? I don't know what you're talking about. The biggest drum collab? That a popular video on YouTube? And Javier, sorry, yeah, you are late. I'm just about to log out here. Been on for like over 2 hours now, but it was good. Thanks a lot, guys. I mean, I can stay on for another couple minutes. Did I mention? Oh, I'll just mention again the video for Rock From Home. For those of you who weren't here before, I want you guys in my new video for Rock From Home. Rock From Home is it's a song, it's a rock song about, you know, those of us that are stuck inside in quarantine, that are still rocking, we're still making music, and I want you guys to send me your videos of you moshing, playing, you know, air guitar, jumping on your bed, doing whatever you want, you know, rocking out at home. Don't hurt yourself or anything like that. But send it to me. If you want to hear the song, if you want to rock out to the song itself, send me an email to rockfromhomevideo@gmail.com. That's rockfromhomevideo@gmail.com, and I'll send you the link to hear the song, and then you can just reply with your video to that same email address. And I'm going to take all the footage. I already have several videos from people combined with my footage, and I'll put it together in a new video for Rock From Home, which is going to be the anthem of 2020. And I'm really excited about this single. And the whole album, the album eventually that's going to come out is called Rock From Home. I'm about halfway done, and I haven't done an album like this in a really long time. It's straightforward rock. Driving Songs was straightforward rock too, but this is kind of continuing in the same realm of driving songs, but has vocals, and I'm using acoustic drums, and I'm writing all these rock songs, kind of 90s grunge, indie type stuff, Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, with a little more metal in there too, a little bit of Dio, a little bit of that kind of stuff. I love that sound, you know. So it's all that stuff in a rock package, and Rock From Home is the title track, and that's going to be the next single. Portal was the first single that's already out, which is going to be in all the streaming services here in the next couple of weeks. It's already on Bandcamp. But Rock From Home, yeah, it's going to be out here very soon. So send me your videos, send an email, and I'll send you guys the track. You can listen to it, and you can rock out to it, and video yourself and send it back to me, and I'll put you in the video. So let's see, a couple more comments here. Hui says, thank you for keep showing up. Thank you, man. I really appreciate you being here. Nixie says, are you going to keep doing more song-by-song streams? If you want me to do them, absolutely. What would you like me to do next? If you've listened to any of my other albums, you have any suggestions on that, I will absolutely do them. I have a lot of albums, and I may remember some better than others, but I will definitely do it. Let's see. Rich Richmond. No, I'm not familiar with him, but Rich Redmond. I'll check it out. So yeah, I'll give a little time for here to catch up with the stream for you guys to respond to what I was just saying. Then after that, I'm going to take off. Really hungry. Talking makes you tired. Did you know that? Hold on, let me take off my hat. So hot, I can't even wear a hat. But yeah, a good test on this wireless mic. Let me show you guys the box so you know what I'm using here. I should have got a link, but these things are really cheap. And it just recharges the standard USB, like Android type charger. Yeah, it's been working for 2 hours. The battery hasn't died yet, so good enough. I mean, that's definitely long enough for a gig or a live stream. I mean, I don't know if you're like a gaming streamer that streams for like 6 hours at a time. It probably wouldn't last, but. Nixie says, I usually listen to the album with the triangle type thing. Spotify, I don't remember the name. That's called Polybius. And thanks. Yeah, that one is definitely that's my drumming album for sure. Like I spent the most time on the drum parts on that one. I wanted to make complex drum parts. So I could definitely do a song by song stream on that one. I'll do that. I'll do that one next. That was a good one. So I was thinking about too, like, I don't know. What do you guys think about this? Like, I have a lot of albums, like I said, that are kind of just full-blown electronic albums that I did from 2013 until 2000 and probably 15. And I was thinking about removing those from all the streaming services and just have them on Bandcamp. Because I kind of want, when people search me on like the streaming services for my other albums to come up first, but they usually don't. It's usually like the old ones with like all the electronic stuff that come up. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? Should I have those pulled from the streaming services? Should I just leave them up there? I like the albums, but I would rather people find my work with live drums on it first. Basically everything from, I guess, Tracker Adjust onward, or even Vapor Font. What was the one called? There's a couple. Like I think 2015 is when they started transition, more like they are now. Even though I'm always eclectic and all over the place. I don't know. If you have an opinion about that, let me know. 'Cause, yeah, I'm not sure what to do. Leave them there. I wish I could prioritize what shows up on the searches, but you can't. Like when people search Demonic Sweaters on Apple Music, it usually turns up, usually Sol Lepidatora, which is like the last album I would like to show up first. Yeah, I don't know. Let us hear them first, Harper Singh says. So maybe I will. Maybe because those ones, I have enough releases. Those full-blown electronic albums, it might be cooler if they're like more, kind of hidden or rare. Maybe they could find them. Oh, you're saying let you actually hear them. Well, you can stream them all. Basically, the first one is just called Demonic Sweaters. The second one's called Demonic Sweaters 2. There's The New Sun, which is one of my favorite of those, the fully electronic albums. There's Return Home. And what else? Sol Lepidatora. So there's 5 albums there. There's Panaphonics. So 6. There's a lot. Basically everything that doesn't have live drums. Yeah, so. But see, the thing is I have older albums that do have live drums. The ones from like 2005, 2006, all the way up to 2012 do have live drums. And those were actually, when I originally released a lot of those, I used to release them under the name Justin Robert, but I went back and changed them to be under the name Demonic Sweaters. And I left the ones that were like straight up ambient as the name Justin Robert. I don't know, maybe I could do the same approach on the electronic albums, change them to a different artist name. That might be a better idea. Louis Mendez says, don't you get paid from the older stream first because our hits are higher than the new ones? Yeah, I do. But, I mean, it's not like you make very much money from streaming anyways. And it might be the only reason why they're most popular is because they're coming up first. I don't know. I'll figure all that out. But anyway, thanks a lot, everybody, and thanks for your help on that. Start asking you guys more questions like this because there's a lot of stuff I don't know what to do about. I feel like I'm forgetting to tell you guys something, but I'm on here so much, I'll just tell you the next time. Anyway, I'm burnt out. I gotta go. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll save that. Maybe I shouldn't even tell this story. But now I have to. So, let me just, okay. This could be a long story, but whatever. Into the stream. Get into it. So, for the past, probably 6 or 7 months, I've been using CBD oil on and off. For various things, for pain and helping me sleep, stuff like that, and relaxation, and it really, really works. And I like it. So I hadn't had a problem with it ever. And CBD oil, if you don't know, is taken from the hemp plant, and it does not usually or really have much THC. The THC is supposed to be so low. THC is the content in marijuana that's high. And so I never felt high taking CBD. ever. However, last night, I got home from a long bike ride and I took some CBD. And then right afterwards, I ate a lot, like too much actually, of some really, really spicy Indian food. And so I was sitting there and I just finished eating and I was digesting my food. I was super full, like really full. I ate way too much. And I got up to go to the kitchen to get some more water. And as I'm walking to the kitchen, I'm like, man, I feel really weird. And then, like, suddenly it hit me. I was like, I'm high. Like, I'm literally really high. And it was crazy. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I was not expecting it at all. And I'm not saying like I was a little bit buzzed. Like, I mean, I felt like I ate a full blown pot brownie. Like, I was super stoned, like super baked. And it was crazy. Like, I was having like racing thoughts. My body felt good. It was very relaxed and numb. But I hadn't smoked weed since like 2005 or 2004. And it was like I just smoked a gigantic split. I was like super, and like music sounded really crazy. And so I was like, how could this have happened? So I did a Reddit post because I wanted to figure this out. How did I, and I knew it had something to do with the Indian food because I was fine before I ate that. And then when I ate that, it like somehow activated it or something. So what can happen apparently is stomach acid in general, can convert CBD to THC. And what had happened is since I took the CBD and then immediately ate like a ton of spicy Indian food, I guess it just made my stomach acids kind of, go into overdrive. And I hit just this chemical reaction just perfectly timing. And I don't know like how much got converted to THC, but it felt like a lot. I was stoned. Like it was crazy. Like it felt like I ate like a huge hot brownie, and it lasted for like 5 hours, like until I went to bed. I just and like I was kind of freaking out. I was like, this is not cool. I did not enjoy it at all. I mean, way too intense, really, really strong, and I was freaking out. And so I was glad that when I woke up, it was totally worn off. But so, note, if you happen to use CBD oil products, don't want to get high, avoid eating large quantities spicy Indian, like after you take CBD. Apparently, after I did the Reddit post, apparently this happened to a few people, not just me. And I was, I didn't think that could happen, but it 100% did. I'm not exaggerating either. I really tell you that I was high AF. Crazy. Anyway, that's going to be all for today. I mean, it was, looking back on it, it was funny because like I just kept telling myself, I was like, it'll wear off, calm down, breathe. Like, and I played guitar and that helped, but I mean, guitar sounded really cool. Like, whoa, Yeah, it was crazy. Anyway, that's going to be all. Avoid spicy Indian food with CBD unless you want that, but it was really intense. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you guys really soon. Everybody stay safe out there, and thanks for watching again, and thanks for all the support. Yeah. Bye.